Let me ask you something honest. How long have you been waiting? Not casually waiting, not the kind of waiting where you check in occasionally and remind God about the thing and then go about your day. The deep waiting, the kind that has become so woven into your daily life that you almost don't notice it anymore, except in the quiet moments, the moments before sleep, the moments in the car when the music stops and there is nothing between you and the reality of how long this has been going on. That waiting. How long? 2 years? 5 years? 10? More than that? And in that waiting, something happened that nobody warned you about. The waiting changed you. Not in the dramatic ways, not in the ways that are easy to name in a testimony, in the quiet ways. The ways that show up in how you respond when someone else gets the thing you have been praying for. You are happy for them, genuinely, but underneath the happiness there is something else, something complicated, something you don't say out loud because it doesn't sound like the faith you are supposed to have. The ways that show up in how you pray now compared to how you prayed at the beginning of the wait. At the beginning, the prayers were full, big, bold, specific. You gave God the details. You told him the timeline. You prayed with the confidence of someone who genuinely believed the answer was close. Now, the prayers are thinner, more careful, hedged. You still pray, but you have learned to hold the expectation loosely, so that if the answer doesn't come in the way you hoped, you haven't invested so much of yourself in it that the disappointment destroys you. And here's what I came to say today. To that tired, waiting, quietly adjusting its expectations version of you. The waiting is over. Not soon. Not eventually. Not in some general future that you will believe in when you see more evidence. The shift God has been building toward, the one that required every single day of the wait to be exactly as long as it was, is at the door. And what comes through that door is going to make the length of the wait finally make sense. Stay with me. What waiting does to faith. I have to be honest about something before I say anything else. Waiting is hard on faith. Not the first month, not even the first year, but extended waiting, the kind that goes on past the point where everyone around you expected it to resolve. The kind that outlasts the prayers of the people who were believing with you at the beginning. The kind that becomes a permanent feature of your landscape rather than a temporary inconvenience. Extended waiting does something specific to faith. It makes faith expensive. At the beginning, faith cost you very little. You believed because it was easy to believe. The promise was fresh. The expectation was high. The evidence against it hadn't had time to accumulate yet. But after years of waiting, every single act of faith costs something. Choosing to believe when the circumstances haven't changed costs something. Choosing to declare the promise when the evidence of the promise is nowhere visible costs something. Choosing to come back to God with the same request for the 100th time, without bitterness, without the kind of cold resignation that says, fine, I'll keep saying the words, but I've stopped expecting anything. That costs something enormous. And God sees that cost. He is not looking at your waiting with the detached patience of someone for whom time means nothing. He is looking at it with the full awareness of what each day of that wait has cost you in faith, in hope, in the daily decision to keep coming back when staying away would have been so much easier. And he is counting it. Every day you waited when you had every reason to stop, God counted. Every prayer you prayed into what felt like silence, God counted. Every morning you woke up and chose to believe one more day despite everything, God counted. And the account, the full account of everything you invested in the waiting, is about to pay out. Not in proportion to the days you waited, in proportion to what the waiting cost you. And what it cost you was everything. Which means what is coming is everything. Why the wait was exactly this long? I know the question underneath everything. Not the polished version of the question, not the version you ask in church, the real version. Why did it have to be this long? Why couldn't God have moved 3 years ago, before the losses that happened inside the waiting, before the relationships that didn't survive it, before the version of yourself you used to be got slowly replaced by this more careful, more guarded, more exhausted version? It is a real question, and it deserves a real answer, not a deflection, not a theological cushion designed to make the question feel smaller. A real answer, here it is. The thing that is coming, the specific, detailed, God-engineered answer that has been in preparation, required a version of you that did not exist 3 years ago. Not a better version in a general sense, a specifically prepared version. 3 years ago, you had the desire for what is coming. You had the faith for what is coming. You had the prayers for what is coming. But you did not have the capacity to steward what is coming. The roots were not deep enough yet to hold the weight of it. The character had not been formed yet that would keep you from being destroyed by it, or from destroying it, in the ways that unprocessed people destroy good things that arrive before they are ready. The healing had not happened yet in the places that would have contaminated what is coming, if what is coming had arrived before the healing. God did not withhold the answer to punish you for something. He withheld it, or more accurately, he timed it. The way a surgeon times an operation. Not when the patient wants it, when the patient is ready for it. And the readiness, the specific readiness required for what is coming, took exactly this long to develop. Every hard season inside the wait was building something specific. Every disappointment that forced you deeper into God because there was nowhere else to go was developing a dependence that the next chapter will require. Every person who left during the wait was making room for the people who are specifically designed for where you are going. Every door that closed was protecting you from a path that would have taken you somewhere that required years of recovery to get back from. The wait was not random. The wait was not punishment. The wait was not God being slow. The wait was God being precise. And the precision of what He has prepared will be evident the moment it arrives, because it will fit perfectly, specifically, undeniably, the exact version of you that the wait produced. The shift that is happening right now. I want to talk about what is actually happening right now in the spiritual atmosphere around your life, because I believe that what God is doing in this specific season is not preparation anymore. It is movement. There is a difference between the seasons where God is preparing and the seasons where God is moving. And I believe, with everything in me, that you have moved from the first to the second. The preparation season felt like silence, stillness, the slow underground work of roots growing deeper in ground that gave no visible indication of what was happening beneath it. The movement season feels different. It feels like things loosening, like something that was fixed beginning to shift, like a wind that wasn't there yesterday, subtle but real, moving in a direction, and you can feel it even before you can see what it is moving toward. Some of you have felt this recently. A conversation that came from an unexpected direction that opened something you thought was closed. A moment in prayer where something shifted, where the words you were praying stopped feeling like they were bouncing off the ceiling and started feeling like they were landing somewhere, being received, being acted upon. A thought that arrived that felt less like your own thinking and more like something being placed, an idea, a direction, a possibility you hadn't considered that lit something up inside you. A door you walked past that suddenly has a handle on it. These are not coincidences. These are signals. The same way weather changes before rain arrives, the atmosphere around your life is changing, and your spirit is picking up what your eyes cannot yet fully confirm. The shift is happening. And here is what the shift looks like when it fully arrives. It looks like suddenly. That is the word God uses. Suddenly the prison doors opened. Suddenly the walls came down. Suddenly the water parted. Suddenly the oil didn't run out. Suddenly the dead thing walked out of the tomb. Suddenly. Not gradually finally arriving after a visible and understandable process. Suddenly. In a way that compresses time. In a way that makes up ground that should have taken years. In a season. In a way that leaves everyone who was watching the wait, unable to explain by any natural framework how the shift happened this fast, how the turnaround came this completely, how the blessing arrived this specifically. Your suddenly is close. I am not giving you a date. I am not telling you which morning you will wake up and feel the shift completed. But I am telling you, the distance between where you are now and the suddenly is shorter than the distance you have already traveled. You are closer to the answer than you are to the beginning of the prayer. What shifts when God shifts things? I want to be specific about what is actually going to shift, because a promise without specificity stays beautiful but distant, something you agree with in the moment and struggle to hold on to by the weekend. When God shifts things in your favor, here is what actually moves. The first thing that shifts is access. There are rooms you have been trying to get into, opportunities, relationships, levels of influence or provision, or simply spaces where the people are who are supposed to be in your life that have been unavailable. Not because you weren't qualified, because the timing wasn't aligned. Because what needed to be in place on the other side of those rooms wasn't fully in place yet. When God shifts, access opens. Doors that had no handle on them suddenly have one. People who were previously unreachable suddenly reach out. Conversations that couldn't happen suddenly happen. And in those conversations, things move quickly, in a way that makes it clear that the conversation was prepared long before it took place. The second thing that shifts is favor. Favor is not about deserving. It is not about being the most qualified, or the most prepared, or the most everything. Favor is when God puts something on your name, an invisible endorsement, that causes people to receive you at a level beyond what your resume would naturally produce. Favor is when the person who has the authority to say yes says yes, and neither of you can fully explain why it felt so right, so obvious, so clearly correct. Favor is when you walk into a room and something about your presence, not your performance, just your presence, shifts the energy in your direction, and opportunities begin to find you instead of you chasing them. When God shifts, favor moves with you, into the meetings, into the conversations, into the rooms where decisions are made about things that affect your life. The third thing that shifts is momentum. The long season of waiting often comes with a particular feeling, the feeling of paddling hard and moving slowly, of investing significant effort for minimal visible return. When God shifts, that ratio inverts. Small actions begin to produce disproportionately large results. Seeds planted in the waiting season begin to produce simultaneously, as if they were all waiting for the same signal, and the signal just came. The momentum that was missing suddenly arrives, and what felt like it would take years begins moving at a pace that surprises you. That is not luck. That is not finally doing the right thing. That is the season changing. That is God putting His hand on the circumstances of your life and aligning things in the direction of what He declared before you ever started waiting. How to position yourself for the shift. Now I want to talk about how you position yourself for what is coming, because positioning matters. Not because the shift depends on your performance. It doesn't. God is not waiting for you to do everything perfectly before He moves, but because there is a posture that receives, and there is a posture that accidentally delays, and it is worth being intentional about which one you are in. The first posture of receiving is expectation. Not anxious expectation, not the white-knuckled, "Is it here yet?" checking every day for signs kind. The settled expectation of someone who knows a package is coming, who doesn't spend every waking moment at the window looking for the truck, but who also doesn't put anything in the space where the package is going to go. Keep the space. Keep the expectation. Live like the answer is coming, not like it might come, like it is coming. And the only variable is the specific day of arrival. The second posture of receiving is preparation. Begin to prepare for what you are believing for, not in a presumptuous way, in a faith way. Faith acts as if before the evidence arrives. Faith makes room before the guest appears. Faith starts getting ready for the thing that is coming, because readiness is itself a form of believing. If you are believing for a business, start preparing for it in the small ways available to you now. If you are believing for a relationship, start doing the interior work that will make you ready to receive it well. If you are believing for a financial shift, start ordering your current stewardship in a way that reflects the level of responsibility you are believing God to trust you with. Preparation is faith in motion, and God honors faith that moves, that acts, that takes up the posture of someone who genuinely believes the answer is not a question mark, but a matter of timing. The third posture of receiving is gratitude. Not forced gratitude, not the performance of thankfulness designed to manipulate God into moving. Real gratitude for what is already present, for what already exists, for the ways He has already moved, that the waiting has made it easy to overlook. Gratitude opens the hands, and open hands are what receives what closed, clenched, "this is taking too long" hands cannot hold. Open your hands. Open your expectation. Open your preparation. Open your gratitude, and receive what is already on its way. This is your season. I want to speak directly into your spirit right now. Past the part of you that is still being careful. Past the part of you that has been disappointed before and learned to manage its hope. Past the part of you that wants to believe this, but is protecting itself from the full weight of believing. Directly to the part of you that has been holding on, quietly, faithfully, at great cost for exactly this long. This is your season. Not a season like yours. Not a season for people in your general situation. Your season, specifically, by name. The thing you have been believing for, the answer to the prayer that has outlasted your ability to pray it with the same energy you started with, is in this season. And I know that might sound like something you have heard before, something that was said in other seasons that turned out to be more waiting. And I understand why that history makes this moment complicated. But I want you to notice something. There is a reason you are watching this today. There is a reason something in you responded to this title. There is a reason that even as I am saying these words, something in your spirit is not dismissing them the way the cautious part of you expected to. That response, that internal recognition, is your spirit agreeing with what your mind is still being careful about. Trust it. Your spirit is more sensitive than your circumstances. Your spirit picks up on what God is doing before your eyes can confirm it. And your spirit is saying, right now, in this moment, this is it. This is the season. This is the turnaround. This is what the waiting was building toward. Trust that. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't let the history of previous disappointments silence what your spirit is recognizing. This is your season. And the shift, the real shift, the one that changes the trajectory, not just the circumstances, is already in motion. Declaration. I want to close by giving you something to carry out of this moment. Not just a feeling, not just an encouragement that fades by tomorrow, a declaration that you are going to speak out loud right now, wherever you are, and that you are going to come back to every morning until the shift is fully visible, as an act of agreement with what God has already declared over your life. Say this: the waiting is over. The season of shift has arrived. What God has been preparing in the silence, in the dark, in the long years of holding on, is now being released in my direction. I am positioned to receive it. I am prepared to steward it. I am ready, not because I am perfect, but because God is faithful, and what He starts, He completes. And He declared this before I ever started waiting. The shift is here. The favor is moving. The doors are opening. The years are being restored. In Jesus' name, I receive it. Today, amen. Type shift in the comments right now. Let that be your declaration. Let the first thing you put into the world today be agreement with what God has already said, because your agreement matters. Your voice in this matters. And every time you open your mouth and align with what God declared, you are not generating faith from nothing. You are adding your voice to His, and the combined sound of that agreement moves things. Share this today with one person still in the waiting. One person who needs to know the shift is close. One person whose spirit will recognize what their circumstances are still contradicting. You know exactly who they are. Send it right now. Subscribe, because what God is building in you, one word at a time, is a foundation, and the next word is already prepared. I will see you in the next video. God bless you. And remember, the waiting is over. The shift is here, and everything God promised is already on its way to your door.